The email landed in my inbox, subject line, proposal for resolution. I was staring at a preliminary plat map for the new North End redevelopment, a project I'd poured months into. A city planner, that's me. Caleb Mitchell, 44. 12 years of marriage, apparently. Could be resolved with a PDF attachment. My hands froze over the keyboard. The email from Joanna's lawyer was concise. She wanted the house, half my pension, and a quick, uncontested divorce. Already had a new address listed. I clicked open the attached marital settlement agreement. It was all there, clinically laid out. My stomach clenched, but years of navigating contentious public hearings and developer negotiations had taught me to keep a poker face. I had a community workshop in an hour. I minimized the email, took a slow breath, and refocused on the zoning overlays. No one in that workshop noticed a thing. Later that night, alone in the quiet of my study, the composure cracked. This wasn't just a divorce. This was a carefully planned demolition. And I, the planner, had missed all the blueprints. But one thing I knew: I don't just react, I analyze, I strategize, and I see things through. I would understand this. Every single detail. The signs had been there, subtle shifts in the urban fabric of our life. Joanna, who once shared my passion for community-led development, started talking about passive income and leveraging assets. That was about 8 months ago. First signed those weekend wealth-building seminars. She suddenly had to attend. Second, her phone, once casually left on the counter, now had a new passcode and was always screened down. Third, the hushed calls she'd take in the other room, her voice dropping if I walked in. I wasn't the suspicious type, but I believed in due diligence. My professional life was about anticipating problems and mitigating risks. So, I'd taken a few quiet steps. Precautionary measures. I'd digitized all our important financial documents, deeds, mortgage papers, investment statements, and stored them on a secure, encrypted cloud drive only I had access to. Years ago, when we bought the house, I'd used a city employee first-time buyer program. The mortgage was solely in my name. She was on the deed as spouse. I also opened a separate, modest savings account at a different credit union, diverting a small, unnoticeable portion of my paycheck there. Not out of distrust then, more like a planner's contingency fund. My gut, trained to spot zoning inconsistencies and flawed development proposals, told me something wasn't aligning in my personal life. I just hadn't grasped the scale of the variance. I met Joanna at a fundraiser for a downtown revitalization project. I was a junior planner then, full of ideals. She was working for a local arts nonprofit, vibrant and articulate. We connected over a shared vision for a better, more livable city. We married within a year, a simple ceremony at the old courthouse. The early years were good. We'd spend weekends exploring different neighborhoods, sketching out ideas for park improvements, debating the merits of mixed-use zoning. I remember one evening, sitting on a bench overlooking the river, after a successful campaign to save a historic landmark I'd been involved with professionally. She'd squeezed my hand and said, "You really make a difference." Cal, that felt like everything. That was the foundation I thought we'd built on. My folks were working class. Dad was a surveyor, always precise. Joanna's family was more entrepreneurial, always chasing the next big thing. A bit of a values mismatch, maybe, but it seemed to work. We bought our house in an up-and-coming neighborhood, one I'd helped draft the neighborhood plan for. It needed work, but it had good bones, a symbol of our shared future. The mortgage, thanks to my city job and that first-time buyer program, was solely in my name, but she was on the deed. That's what you did. Important life events. My promotion to senior planner was a big one. We celebrated. Then her father got sick, a long illness that drained her. I supported her, took on more at home. Professionally, I was dealing with a massive comprehensive plan update for the city. Long hours, high stress. She'd said she understood. Looking back, maybe that's when the first hairline cracks appeared in our foundation. The distance grew slowly at first, then accelerating. 1. She started criticizing my job. "Still messing with those bureaucratic permits, Cal. When are you going to do something bigger?" Bigger always meant more money, less public service. 2. Our conversations thinned. Less about community projects, more about her new friends from the seminars, people I never met. She'd taken a marketing job with a flashy new real estate developer known for aggressive, sometimes questionable, projects. Third, she began talking about us being house rich, cash poor, suggesting we lock the equity in our home. I, the careful planner, saw no need. Our mortgage was manageable. The turning point was about 6 months ago, when she insisted on getting a joint home equity line of credit, a Halo C, for potential investments. I'd been hesitant. She'd pushed. That must have been when she met Grant Thorne. The investment advisor, she started mentioning. I started my own quiet investigation, not with suspicion, but with a planner's need for data. Using my access to the county's online property information system, something I used daily for work, I checked our address. First red flag. A recent lien recorded against the property, a LOC, for $75,000. My signature was on the digital loan documents, or a very good forgery of it. I felt a cold dread. Second, I logged into our joint bank account, large irregular withdrawals. Transfers to an account I didn't recognize, thousands. Third, I found a printed email, accidentally left in her old desk drawer, from Grant Thorne, discussing favorable appraisals and expedited closing. My office at the city planning department suddenly felt like a pressure cooker. The methodical way they were extracting value, it was like watching a developer find loopholes in zoning codes to maximize profit at the community's expense. This was systematic. I needed to talk to someone who understood strategy, someone I trusted. Samira Reddy, Sam, my colleague, a sharp planner with a no-nonsense attitude. We'd worked together on some tough rezoning cases. I caught her after our staff meeting. Sam, got a personal mess. Joanna's leaving. And it looks like she's been planning an exit strategy involving our assets. I laid out what I'd found about the Halo and the withdrawals. Sam listened, her expression growing serious. Cal, this sounds less like a messy divorce and more like, well, a hostile acquisition. You need to treat it that way. Get someone who knows how to fight this, and fast. This isn't about feelings anymore. It's about protecting what's yours. Her pragmatism cut through my shock. She was right. This was a problem that needed a plan. That night, I remembered the smart home security system Joanna had insisted we install a couple of years back. She managed it, said it was for convenience. I rarely paid attention to it, but I recalled setting up remote cloud storage for the footage, a backup. She probably forgot. I logged in. There it was. Hours of footage. I fast-forwarded. And there he was, Grant Thorne, in my living room. With Joanna, they weren't just talking, they were familiar. Too familiar. I saw him kiss her. My gut twisted. I turned up the audio. The Hellock money is almost cleared, Thorne was saying. Once we list it, with my guy handling the sale, we can get it moved quickly. Below market, cash buyer clean. Joanna asked, what about Cal? What if he fights the divorce terms? Thorne laughed. He's a city planner, Joe. Bureaucrat. He'll roll over once he sees the legal bills. We'll be long gone. 3 key details: confirmation of the affair, the deliberate plan to sell the house cheap, and their contemptuous dismissal of me. The emotional impact was like a wrecking ball. But my planner's mind was already sifting through the debris, looking for structural points to leverage. I saved copies of the footage. Every damning second, the shockwave hit, then receded, replaced by a cold, clear focus. This wasn't just betrayal. It was calculated fraud. My training kicked in to find the problem, gather all relevant data, identify stakeholders, formulate a strategy, then execute. The initial plan was simple: secure legal and investigative help immediately, document everything, protect remaining assets, and then systematically dismantle their scheme. The next morning, I called Vivian Holloway. Her PI firm was recommended by a lawyer Sam knew, specialized in financial forensics and complex marital disputes. Her voice on the phone was calm, professional. I briefly explained the situation, mentioning the forged Hillock and the video evidence. Mr. Mitchell, she said, I have an opening this afternoon. Bring everything you have. That meeting was the new phase 1. Vivian Holloway's office was discreet, functional. She was in her 40s, sharp eyes, listened without interruption as I laid out the timeline, the Hillock, the bank transfers, the video. I handed her a flash drive with copies of everything. She reviewed the key documents quickly, her expression unreadable. The forged signature on the hierarchy is your strongest leverage point right now, Mr. Mitchell, she stated, her voice even. The video corroborates intent to defraud. Mr. Thorne seems to be a predator, and your wife is a willing participant. Hearing it put so bluntly by a professional was jarring but also clarifying. My immediate goal, Vivian continued, is to trace where that Ellick money went and identify Thorne's network. We also need to put a freeze on any attempt to sell your house. I felt a shift inside me. The planner in me was back in control, working with a capable consultant. Vivian worked fast. Within days she had more. Grant Thorne has a pattern, she explained in our next meeting, spreading out a flowchart, like diagram. He targets women with access to assets, often in relationships under strain. He's done this at least twice before in neighboring counties. The Sheila money. Much of it was funneled through a shell corporation and then to a specific title company Thorne uses. They're likely in on it, pushing through quick, undervalued sales. She showed me documents, forged electronic signatures on applications for new credit cards in my name, all maxed out. They were trying to extract every last dime before listing the house, Vivian said. The diagram showed connections: Thorne, Joanna, a shady mortgage broker, the complicit title company, and a real estate agent known for quick lowball cash sales. It was a well-oiled machine designed to strip assets. The scale of it was sickening. I'd planned communities. They'd planned my destruction. Thorne is also trying to get Joanna to persuade you to sign a quitclaim deed for the house, to simplify the divorce, Vivian reported. Don't, we need to move officially. We consulted with an attorney Vivian recommended, a specialist in property fraud. The first step, file a police report regarding the forgery and financial fraud. Second, formally notify all banks, credit agencies, and the county recorder's office of the fraud, placing alerts on my credit and a lis pendens on the property title. This would effectively halt any sale. The attorney drafted cease and desist letters. We were no longer just observing, we were engaging. The city planner in me appreciated the structured, multi-pronged approach. A few days later, Joanna called, her voice tight with feigned panic. Cale. The bank just called me about the HELOC. They said something about a fraud investigation. And they've frozen the account. What's going on? I kept my response brief, as advised by Vivian. I'm addressing some financial irregularities, Joanna. Talk to your lawyer. Click. The first ripple. They knew we were onto them. The police detective assigned to my case, Detective Miller from Economic Crimes, was thorough. He took my statement, reviewed Vivian's evidence, the forged Hilo documents, the bank statements, the video. This Grant Thorne character sounds familiar, Miller mused. We've had whispers about a crew targeting vulnerable homeowners. Your evidence, Mr. Mitchell, especially that video and the clear forgery, gives us a lot to work with. The official investigation began, focusing on Thorne, the mortgage broker, and the title company. Vivian, working with Detective Miller and my attorney, anticipated Thorne and Joanna would try something desperate. They'll want to offload that house fast now that they know you're investigating, Vivian theorized. We learned through a discreet inquiry by Vivian's legal. Of course, sometimes just knowing who to ask in the real estate world that Thorne, through his complicit agent, was trying to arrange a quick, private sale, bypassing the usual MLS listing. They set up a meeting with a potential cash buyer, likely another of Thorne's associates, at a neutral location to sign an initial agreement. Vivian arranged for discreet surveillance. I wasn't there. I was at my desk, reviewing a site plan for a new public library, my mind a split screen between civic duty and personal warfare. The call came from Vivian. They're meeting now. Coffee shop downtown. Detective Miller, armed with probable cause from our evidence of forgery and conspiracy to commit fraud, was also en route. No dramatic raid. Instead, Miller and another plainclothes officer walked in as Thorne and Joanna were deep in conversation with the buyer and the agent, papers spread on the table. Miller identified himself, calmly explained they were persons of interest in an ongoing fraud investigation, and requested they accompany him to the station for questioning. The buyer and agent quickly distanced themselves. I saw the security footage later. Joanna looked stunned. Thorne tried to bluster, then deflated. The carefully constructed plan to sell my house out from under me had crumbled. The investigation unspooled their entire operation. Grant Thorne was the ringleader of a small crew that specialized in what they called equity harvesting. They'd identify properties. Thorne would charm his way in, often through an affair, and then they'd use forgeries, manipulation, and their network of a shady mortgage broker, a complicit real estate agent, and a title company that looked the other way to bleed assets and force quick sales. Joanna, it turned out, wasn't just a pawn. She was an active participant, lured by promises of a big payday and a new life, and had helped identify me as a target because of my stable city job and good equity. She'd even provided Thorne with samples of my signature. Thorne and his key associates faced multiple felony charges: forgery, grand larceny, conspiracy to defraud. Joanna, facing serious charges herself, agreed to cooperate with the prosecution against Thorne. In return for her testimony and full restitution of her share of the stolen funds, which her family reluctantly paid to keep her out of jail, she pleaded to a lesser offense. My divorce from her was finalized swiftly. She got nothing from our marital assets: no house, no pension, no spousal support. She signed a confession of judgment for the money she'd helped steal. It was a clean, surgical cut. The aftermath left a bitter taste. I couldn't stay in Aurora, couldn't keep working at the city planning department where every street corner held a memory of Joanna or our life together. The case, while not front-page news, had been whispered about. I needed a fresh start, a place where my professional skills could be applied without the shadow of personal wreckage. I tendered my resignation, giving ample notice, and began looking for a chief planner or director position in a smaller city, one focused on sustainable growth and community-centric design, the ideals that had drawn me to planning in the first place. I methodically sold the house. The market had recovered, and with the fraudulent halo cleared, I got a fair price. I found a position as planning director in Clearwater, a vibrant, progressive town in the Pacific Northwest. New job, new city, new life. I bought a small, efficient row house near a greenway I'd admired on my interview visit. The work was challenging and rewarding. I was shaping a community again, this time with a deeper understanding of vulnerability and resilience. My days were filled with master plans, community workshops, genuine ones this time, and the quiet satisfaction of building something positive. I adopted a rescue dog, a scruffy terrier mix I named Blueprint. We explored the local trails. Life settled into a new, calmer rhythm. About a year into my new role in Clearwater, the city council held a small ceremony to celebrate the preservation of a local wetland area. It had been slated for controversial development, but our department, through careful environmental review and a revised comprehensive plan element I'd championed, had managed to protect it and incorporate it into a new nature park. The head of a local citizens group, an older woman, specifically thanked me. "Mr. Mitchell," she said, "your foresight and commitment to sound land use planning saved this beautiful place for all of us, for generations to come." It wasn't a headline, just a quiet acknowledgement, but it resonated deeply. My actions, my professional skills, had a tangible, positive impact. It was a reminder that good planning, in cities and in life, truly matters. I rarely thought about Joanna or Thorne. He was serving a lengthy prison sentence. She, I heard, was back in her hometown trying to rebuild her own life. I felt no anger, just a distant sort of pity. The sharp edges of the betrayal had smoothed over time. Like a river stone, I was at peace. Sometimes, looking out my window at the Clearwater Hills, I'd reflect. My planner's mind, the one Joanna had derided as bureaucratic, had been my salvation. The methodical attention to detail, the contingency planning, the strategic thinking, these weren't just job skills, they were survival tools. Life, like urban development, requires a solid plan, an understanding of the terrain, and the resilience to rebuild when things get demolished. And sometimes, the best views come after the toughest climbs.